The comment, it was made a while back about, I don't know whether to sit, to stand, how to behave when I'm interacting with an officer, and going along with the balance of power. Unfortunately, the things that officers do, the way they behave, that's been dictated by past experiences and, really lessons that have been learned, in blood. Um, it's the reason officers would act a certain way is they've been on that call where the person, seemed like everything was good to go. It was going to be just a simple call, and then it turns into something major, and they're fighting, and it just all goes downhill from there. As you've been on for any amount of time, you've experienced that call where, okay, this thing's simple run of the mill call, and then just like that, it goes sideways. So I think it is incumbent upon the officer to explain in detail and articulate why they're asking somebody to do something. So when someone says, "Oh, hey, can I sit down?" or "Can I stand up?" and the officer, I think, needs to explain, well, this is why you can, this is why you can't, and do so in a way that's not so robotic that that person feels like, hey, I'm dealing with a robot here. As far as people talking about the firearm, I can promise you that's the last thing that any of us ever want to use. I don't want to pull it out. I'd prefer if I never had to see it. I would prefer to just talk somebody into handcuffs. But at the end of the day, there's that 3% of contacts where that's not going to happen. And then when we start talking about the complying and complaining and whatnot, I think what that comes down to is you look at somebody who grew up in a neighborhood where that's part of the culture, as opposed to somebody who grew up in a neighborhood where it's not, and were the resources there for that person to be educated on police contacts, or was that person, seeing people fight police officers day to day? So you grow up around it, and I can speak from that a little bit from experience where I grew up in Sacramento. I know Robinson, the same thing. We grew up in the same area. You grow up and you see the way other people treat police officers. That's going to influence how you do it. So I think getting into neighborhoods where that's a common occurrence, we talked about, you said City Heights or, whatnot. You go into these neighborhoods where it's a common occurrence where there's negative interactions with police. I think it needs to start from the ground up, educating people on how the interaction should go and their options to deal with it on a civil aspect.